hottest raves at the moment has to be this place. It has evolved to be a global lifestyle brand in only a couple of decades. It is known for its red ambiance and large crowds, its tropical settings, its underground locations, its extravagance, but most importantly, for its music. Its partygoers are usually as diverse as can be. The young and curious, the rich and powerful, the artistic and liberated, but the event unites them for a few hours. Free from the routine, from the mundane, it's a safe space where anything can happen. And yes, that includes the unmentionable. Despite its humble beginnings filled with skepticism and trouble with local governments, it has now become one of the most successful projects in the music scene. But how did it get to where it is now? This is the story of Circoloco. The Adriatic coast of Italy was a hub spot for partying in the 90s. The clubs, the glamour, seduced many youngsters to its scene. Andrea Pelino, a young boy from Rome, was one of them. He flocked to Rimini after being part of the rave culture in London. His Italian after-parties became such a hit that one of them topped 12,000 attendees. He even got arrested at some point for organizing events of such scale. With this momentum, he went from raves to promoting clubs, which also led to great success. But the police shut it down. Again, frustrated and defeated, he thought about going elsewhere. He needed something entirely different, something fresh.
Ladies and gentlemen, this will serve as a final boarding announcement for Flight 2450. All passengers intending travel should be through the door marked A3 at this time.
A small island on the Mediterranean that summer seemed like a good choice. His soon-to-be friend Antonio Carbonaro was also in Ibiza. Antonio, who also goes by Tony, had deep connections with the music scene as well. The Italians met on the island, and only 3 days later, they had become business partners. But the partnership came quite easily to them after getting a feel of the clubs on the island. The party scene in Ibiza was lacking. The music was trash. They had to do something about it. So Tony came up with a new proposal, a social concept, which he pitched to Andrea. The duo just hoped to give the island what it deserved, a place with good music and people. There was a small and abandoned venue that used to be a farmhouse. It was away from all the trendy places, far from all the lights and sounds. He generally thought it could be given a new life and might as well be worth a try. The place was called DC-10, in honor of one of the largest aircraft at the time. It made sense given how close it was to the airport. The only things other than the airport in the area were salt ponds. But hopes were high, as the Italian duo already had many years of experience organizing after-parties in their homeland. The new founders immediately got to work. Their first attempt went live at 6 a.m. on Monday, July 18th, 1999. No permits, no PR, nothing. The after-party would fill a gap in the scene where locals and tourists alike could keep socializing and partying. Way after Space's 24-hour session had ended. Right at the start, they sourced non-mainstream DJs who were based out of Europe. And with all of that set in place, they named it Circoloco. Ibiza in the late 90s looked very different back then. There was less infrastructure and many of its surroundings were untouched. DC-10 reflected that reality with a very bare-bones setup, to the point where many were confused when they saw the place for the first time. It was easy to get into the after-party as it was free of charge. But the decoration? Just a few cardboard boxes to sit on. The DJ booth itself was built on top of crates, and mattresses were scattered around the place. Fortunately for Tony and Andrea, they found the talent relatively quickly. They didn't care that nobody had heard of their first DJ. Even every winter, they would focus on finding and booking the best DJs on the island. But as good music flowed and everything seemed set in place, there were no more than 200 attendees. It made the experiment hard to vouch for. However, one thing was certain. The vibe was fresh. It was something nobody had seen before. It was edgy. It wasn't corporate. In a matter of weeks, the place was packed. The venue hosted strange people, maybe to the point of being called freaks from the mainstream point of view. Well-groomed people, almost naked individuals, hippies, tourists, and everything in between could be seen on its grounds. The flair that the Italian and Spanish partygoers brought to the event had another feel, different from how the British tourists used to party. Some attendees came right after Space had played its last set, and others would just wake up and go. The smells, the sights, the open air space with the planes flying above, it was a stimulation of the senses. People would stay there for hours on end, way after the sun had risen, while smaller DJs had complete creative freedom with their sets. World-known DJs would come in and party with everyone else. Then stage diving started becoming a common practice while many people came in with costumes and wigs. And if somebody had a birthday, they would switch from playing dark tech house to Stevie Wonder's Happy Birthday. Celebrities like Mick Jagger, Noel Gallagher, Valentino Rossi, and even Diddy would turn up at the rave without anybody else acknowledging their fame. To many, it was a magical place. It didn't take long until magazines named it the best party in the world. But even then, nobody knew if the event would stick or if it would just become a passing fad. What they knew is that they had to keep pushing hard to create something bigger than themselves, regardless of whether they were going through a good wave or through the upcoming obstacles that they were about to face. As Ibiza entered a new stage in the 2000s, gentrification accelerated. New hotels started popping up and venues encouraged the separation of people with VIP sections and bottle service. Circoloco remained at the other extreme. It wasn't only a party, but a connector as well. People would mix and mingle platonically, romantically, and professionally. To this day, many individuals have met others on the dance floor who have not left their side. One time, a young 21-year-old raver got a compliment on his unique shirt that, at that time, was really hard to get. He loved dressing differently with bold colors and was also regular on the island during the summer. Fast forward years later after the compliment, the partygoer became an essential part of the Circoloco family, and the girl went on to be the raver's creative director. The traction the after-party was getting was undeniable. No doubt, music was one of the factors that facilitated its growth. Minimal techno was rapidly becoming synonymous with Circoloco, all because it was offering something that didn't exist elsewhere. Many people felt an immense attraction to it. The vibe made people come back, and DJs even started offering to play for free, so big marketing tactics were never really necessary. Their business decisions were simple. They always stemmed from having their partygoers in mind. So seeing people satisfied at their venue satisfied them back. The lives of the founding duo completely changed forever. The risks they took were starting to pay off. With all these validations, Tony and Andrea thought about opening on more nights, but that didn't gain any traction. Only Mondays worked. And with growth comes adversity. The local government soon took notice, and legal difficulties emerged. In 2002, the island of Ibiza began a crackdown on billboards. They wanted to take down all the advertisements that they had deemed illegal. And of course, that also included Circoloco's own posters. The few billboards that they had put up across the island suddenly became a target. And then in 2008, DC-10 was completely shut down by the authorities. The momentum that the founders had created was suddenly gone. One of the arguments was that they had a license that could only accommodate 65 people, all while the number of attendees each Monday was reaching 1,500 souls. With the closure, the last party of the season had to be moved to Privilege, the largest nightclub in the world at the time. Tony and Andrea now had to pay a fine of 300,000 euros from their own pocket. The people that depended on them to socialize with their community had to go elsewhere. However, with all the legal battles, the closure lasted for only about a year, but it was still a long and deafening year. As DC-10 reopened its doors in 2010, they added new faces to its repertoire of talent, laying the groundwork for what was about to come. And just a few years later, the venue was back on track with a nomination for Club of the Year. The talents kept trust high among partygoers with its musical creation and accessible fees. The exceptional relationship they had with their attendees helped them expand outside of Ibiza and connect them with even more people around the world. When Drake released a single called Circoloco, it was clear that things were changing. The brand was making a huge impact. It was turning into more than just a space to dance in. And so fashion entered the chat. The founders did not seek it, but rather it came to them. With that momentum, they were able to ignite collaborations with Virgil Abloh and Adidas. And with that, No Soul for Sale came to be the bond of fashion and art with the Circoloco brand. Tony and Andrea started accumulating some serious compounding effect from their success. But something else was happening in the world. New York, Istanbul, London, Rome, Bangkok. It was an event that nobody could have foreseen. Humanity was on fire. The lights had to be turned off. The music world had taken a direct hit. Their 40+ parties around the world were suddenly canceled. Artists, promoters, organizers, managers, Every single person in the music industry had to get creative to survive the unknown. How were they gonna make it? Would money run out? How were they going to keep the community connected? While some people turned to streaming, Tony had other things in mind. As the world fully embraced the confined lifestyle, the Italian founders knew that they had to make something happen if they wanted to survive. Their business model was dependent on physical humans, but when that was cut off, Tony resurfaced the dream he had been putting away. It was the start of a new record label, naturally called Circoloco Records. Tony threw the idea to his friend, Sam Houser, the co-founder of Rockstar Games. Yes, the same company that created the Grand Theft Auto franchise. From the get-go, it was a good match as Sam also shares Tony's passion for music. You could say that they have the same ears. So Sam set out to help the Italians and the Circoloco band. But as the world shut down, they began to step into the unknown. The result? A combination of worlds under one movement. Tony quickly noticed that hard work was not enough to get this label up and running. They had to convince the artists about the perks of signing onto the label and working with them. The convincing part was hard, even with those that already had strong ties with Circoloco. Turns out, many musicians already had deals with other record companies or even had their own labels. Against all odds, Circoloco Records was launched on May 24th, 2021. And since then, the collaboration has deepened. Both Circoloco and Grand Theft Auto resident DJs have been signed to the label. It's the fusion of two different industries and two different brands. Video games are now seeping into global dance culture, while songs from Circoloco Records can now be heard on GTA's own clubs and radio stations. All thanks to Tony and Sam. There's no doubt that Circoloco has impacted the lives of many, including the kid who got complimented because of his shirt. As he continued networking and hustled his way into the scene, he was offered residency at DC-10. It took off with ease. A few years later, he made his own spin-off called Paradise, named after Paradise Garage, a world-famous club from the 1980s. Circoloco has always tried to curate the best music there is, and naturally, that also attracts exceptional talent, including musicians who have also raved within DC-10's own grounds. It was simply a symbiotic relationship waiting to happen. The venue success was their success, and the other way around. Alongside Jamie Jones, there's also Seth, Tanya, Ricardo, Luciano, Cirillo, Marco, and many others that have rotated through Circoloco's doors. Post-pandemic, Circoloco keeps growing and is rapidly becoming an international powerhouse. Last year, they hosted one of their longest seasons in Ibiza. Not only did they become a music tastemaker, but they have also evolved into a lifestyle brand reaching out to people outside of the music scene. Tony and Andrea have given a new life to Eivissa and exceeded expectations with what they set out to do a quarter of a decade ago. And as we get closer to their 25th anniversary, I'm very much anticipating what they have in store for the year. Bigger, better parties? More sophisticated collaborations? Something entirely new that we haven't seen yet? Even when many years have passed since that first party in 1999, something true remains at Circoloco. The original essence is being kept alive. The essence of community, the sense of inclusion, the energy of unity. For me, it's the music that brings everyone together. The real feeling of being there for the same reason, not for status or for show. For mere enjoyment. For the state-of-the-art curation. From those hazy Monday mornings where it all began, to full-on streetwear collaborations, innovation is their driving force. Their wide appeal caters to different ages, countries, beliefs, and backgrounds. Those iconic gates have now become a cultural staple in the scene. Regardless, they still manage to keep the vibe intimate, even when there are thousands of attendees. Just like in its early years, Carbonaro still curates the lineup and roster, and Tony and Andrea are still the last to leave when it's time to close DC-10. But as more people join the movement, will this delicate balance remain as they scale? Is the best yet to come? Time will tell.
Electronic music's always been for the underground. Ibiza has always been the center point of what all global trends are. Every major electronic musician and major brand kind of really starts its thing here. It's pretty crazy actually. It's like there's been so many memories here and so many DJs who've kind of like really made their way, from Jamie Jones, the Martinez Brothers, Luciano, Dice. It's like such a cultural center of what has become electronic music for the past 15, 20 years, you know?
If you like this video, I would massively appreciate a little like, and if you can, do subscribe. Your support helps me continue on with this journey. Peace out.